Welcome to Conversation on the TYT Network. We got a great guest for you guys, Viviana Vigil. She is a commentator and host on El Rey Network. Viviana, welcome back to the program.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So let's talk politics. First, let's start with foreign elections. Bolivia just had one. Earlier, Elon Musk had said, we'll coup anyone we like in that country. The voters of Bolivia seem to have a different impression. So tell us how that went.
Absolutely, it was great to see a leftist lead, and Arce take control. He was, of course, under Morales, who got ousted by, the US, really. We went in there and we mangled, and we tried to put a conservative leading party in there, and they were ousted. The lines were around the block. It looked a lot like here in the US. And at the end of the day, they got somebody in charge that is going to bring a little bit more socialism back to the country. It's interesting to me that this is happening now, because as you know, Cenk, there has been a long, strong arm of imperialism from the United States into every country practically. And this is showing us how weak that's becoming. And I don't ever congratulate Trump with anything, but perhaps it's due to him. Perhaps how weak Trump is now making America weaker. And as an effect, we're seeing America's imperialism starting to fall and crumble. They don't have the power they did. Elon Musk does not surprise me anymore with anything that he says. The guy is clearly a capitalist. He acted as if he was being such a philanthropist and really helping the country and helping the world and the planet. And we're seeing his true colors. We're seeing really what he's about. And I'm excited for Bolivia. They have had a really, really tough time. COVID has hit them hard. I think they have over 8,000 deaths and only have a population of, under 12 million or something like that. So they're gonna have an economic fallout like the rest of the world is. But I think when they have a leader in place that's gonna be fighting for the people and be fighting for the country and fighting for the proletariat as opposed to, the 1%, I think we're going to see them have some success, and I'm glad that the people were able to express their vote. And it's difficult to win over there. You need to get over 50% or over 40%, and Arce really pulled it out.
Yeah, you got to be over 40% with a 10-point lead or over 50%, period. He did both. He was over 50% and he had over a 20-point win. So, Viviana, let me ask you one more question about that. And it's about American media, because a lot of the questions around Bolivia and other Latin American countries that the US meddles in are easy. We shouldn't. We do coups and we do massive, massive propaganda. The question to me that's hard is why the American media oftentimes plays along with it. And I know that historically the media has been co-opted by the CIA and the United States government, but I thought we were way past that. I mean, I'd be shocked if the CIA is telling the New York Times what to do these days. But nonetheless, still a lot of mainstream media, when there is a coup in Latin America, say, I don't see the coup, I don't know what you're talking about. The people have risen up in Venezuela and Bolivia and decided that they want a right-wing leader who's gonna sell their natural resources to America for really, really cheap. That's what I'm hearing in the streets.
Yeah.
Why is that happening?
I think we're in a real shift. It used to be decades and decades ago that, the CIA, FBI, you needed to have government agencies going in there and manipulating things. Now, with how easy it is to send information around the world, you find that, these elites, the people in power with the money, are starting to target people and journalists and papers and whatnot independently. Even people that are supposedly left leaning aren't when your pockets are lined. And so we're seeing media twisting and tangling. We don't even know what, papers are left or conservative or, progressive anymore, because it just really depends who's writing it and who's backing that person. It's easier also to see information straight from the source. So you really have to get in there and vilify whatever independent journalism is happening in each individual country.
Yeah.
And I think the US is just really losing that power, even, within their own government control of being able to plant CIA operatives or whatever in there to try to tweak things. You're gonna have to be real guerrilla about it now. And so it's whoever can write that check.
Yeah.
I really think that that's the biggest thing. Capitalism is fueling it.
Yeah, well, that happens here too. Right-wing billionaires write checks to media outlets like PragerU and Ben Shapiro and so many others, all the way up to Rush Limbaugh. And obviously a right-wing billionaire owns New York Post, Wall Street Journal, and Fox News Channel. And those folks do get to do propaganda on a very, very large scale. Okay, so now let's talk about US politics in specific. So Donald Trump is doing disastrously among women overall. And now that's normal. He did poorly last time around with women as well. But now he's lost college educated white men. 53% have a very unfavorable impression of him in that category. He's lost voters above the age of 55, which was a stronghold for him last time around. He's in a world of hurt, but amazingly, Black and Latino voter support has started to go up for him compared to 2016. I can get into some of the numbers, and I'm sure you can as well. But let's talk about Latinos first. What do you think is happening there? Why in the world, for a guy who has targeted Latinos and immigrants nonstop, why is his support going up rather than down?
It's so difficult to understand why people would vote against their own interests. But when we start really thinking about ideology and the concept of whiteness, and it's a phrase that I've coined, Cenk, and I use it all the time. You don't have to be white to be a white supremacist. It's an ideology. And when you're trying to compete in a country and you're trying to assimilate, because that's what's required when you're under the thumb of white supremacy, which we all are in the United States. If you were raised, and even globally, we were raised as white supremacists, and we have to actively fight that every single day. And so the voters are trying to navigate the system to belong. I mean, we're seeing record numbers of police violence. We know that the justice system is not balanced. And so you don't want to be a victim to that. So what do? You join the other side. You say, okay, I'm not a victim. You know what? Donald Trump does say things how they are. He does lay it out. He doesn't care about what anybody says. And especially men find that to be empowering. And unfortunately, like you just mentioned, it's the educated white men that are, and men in general, that are leaning away from it because they've taken, logic classes in college. But it's the undereducated people who maybe don't recognize that sort of gaslighting and race baiting that's taking place, and they're taking the bait. And there is a lot of toxic masculinity still in this country, and it is extremely strong within the Latino community as well, because it's part of our culture. It's part of how men are raised, that this is right and this power, grab them by the is a normal thing, and it's something that's celebrated, or at least was. And we're starting to break through those walls. And so we have to bust through that toxic masculinity within the Latino culture. And it's both women and men and any gender within that kind of fall victim to that ideology. And I really think that there's also a lot of one issue voters that are going on, they're anti-abortion. But I think the biggest issue, and I don't think we're really putting enough, and I wish we didn't have to, but I don't think we're putting enough attention on what QAnon is doing and the misinformation that's going on Facebook. Latinos are really record-setting using Facebook. I mean, they're on there constantly. My own family I've seen take the bait of QAnon. Latinos are very much about family. They're very much about children. And this QAnon conspiracy is really playing into pedophilia. And somehow Trump is secretly behind the scenes going to stop child trafficking, and they want to believe it. It's a complicated problem. It's an ugly issue that we're dealing with. Child trafficking is a real thing, and it's horrible, and pedophilia is a real thing, and we don't want that. But then they start correlating these, I won't even say progressive sort of laws, but birth control that's going to be available to someone who as young as 10. They then interpret that. We passed that here in California, that we want to make birth control without parental consent available to young women as young as 10 years old. And that is to protect them from getting pregnant, from abuse from a cousin or somebody that's in their life. It's not meant to justify pedophilia and to allow them to be having sex at 10 years old, but they're afraid of these kinds of things. And we all want an easy solution. Don't you wish you could just let Jesus take the wheel? I do, but that's not realistic. We have to really look at these problems for what they are. And unfortunately, a lot of these people who have not really done the time to educate themselves, more than just reading Facebook articles, really get into the meat of what's going on, they want to ride this roller coaster and hope that somebody saves them. I don't know how they think Trump's going to be that person, but they're really in for a rude awakening. And my own cousin who's jumped on that bandwagon, I said, how is it that Trump is going to save child trafficking when he's the guy? There's been so many kids that have gone missing from the border after he put them in cages. All of a sudden, we don't know where they are. Doesn't that seem kind of suspicious to you? They don't want to hear it. So I really think there's a lot of stuff going on. It's about whiteness, it's about belonging, it's about assimilation, it's about fear, it's about religion, it's about control over women's bodies, it's about toxic masculinity. I mean, these are a lot of layered things going on, and unfortunately, it's playing into the hands of the voters, and what's exactly what Trump wants. He wants them to see that he can really solve this.
Yeah, look, we're out of time. I wish we had more time for it because that is so interesting. Because it's amazing. Donald Trump is the one that wished Ghislaine Maxwell well. She's the most notorious child molester in the country, and on 2 different occasions, he twice said, "Oh, I wish her well." He's friends with her. He partied with her. And I mean, and I hadn't thought of the point about the kids in the cages, and we know that they lost track of their parents. And some of them never got reunited. But for some reason, once QAnon started, people that were not even necessarily Republicans before, they just switched off their brain. And they're like, okay, that's it. I now lend out my brain to the first person who made the allegation. So I mean, it is so toxic because then that creates all the wrong incentives. Some Democratic consultants are probably thinking, we wish we alleged that the Republicans were child molesters as a political tactic before the Republicans used it on us, because apparently anybody will believe it about anybody without any evidence. So this isn't just absolutely insane. And before we go, guys, I just want to be clear on the facts. I don't want people to get it wrong. 57% of Latino men are still voting for or supporting Biden according to the polls. It's just a lower number than you would have expected given the circumstances. So Biden does still lead in that category, and he leads with Latinas at 64% support. Again, I would have imagined it'd be bigger, but Biden does still hold those leads. All right, Viviana, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Cenk. I love the show. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you. Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below, and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.